Okay.
Technological would have been like, just German, I guess, right? Oh, must be German.
I'm just wondering if they saw like, some sort of language or something on the screen. They didn't know what it was. So
They did, but I'll get to that. It's actually...
This ain't American.
It's interesting. I think back then, just like the Germans were like, held in the regard like the enemy, and they were advanced, and they were doing evil things, and like if anyone could have crazy tech, it's the Germans. I think that was just a fear back then. That's why they said that.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was blast, there was damage. It looked like someone chased these things. So before they kept going deeper, they brought in an archaeologist who found tablets that were all... and the writing was all deciphered, and it all looked like cuneiform. It was all very close to cuneiform tablets from Sumeria, from the Sumerian time of creation. It was very similar in a way, but clearly different. And they so they later claimed that it was obviously associated with that, or the original language that started that, or it was all associated. And I'm going to do it before I go into the action horror, which happens next. There's a quick breakdown. Basically, what they end up finding out through these cuneiform texts and the story was this is what they said. I'm going to sum it up real quick, and this is like 18 podcasts in this next paragraph that I'm going to give you.
They translated it.
They translated it. They figured it all out. It took a long time, but they ended up figuring it all out.
All right.
And basically what it said was there was a progenitor race that left Sirius, the star system Sirius, inhabited Mars. Something bad happened, which we know Mars looks like it got blown up from the side. We can go into a whole podcast about that. They came to Earth, but still couldn't deal with our atmosphere, but it was close enough so they could figure it out. So they created a stronger genetic offspring called the Anu, A-N-U. And then they created They created a servant class called the E-L-O-A-H. Eloha, which is a gray alien.
That's where the Elohim comes from, yeah.
Which is a gray. So the grays helped the Anu, and they oversaw primitive humans. But still, the Anu got sick and then created another race. It's going to get confusing, but it doesn't really matter. And that race ended up interbreeding with humans, and that race became the elite or the Illuminati in the world today. And they basically went to the surface and left the grays down there. And the grays can't come up either because they can only come up in their ships, and they have ships and stuff. And they can only come up. They can come up from underground in their ship. Yeah, something with the atmosphere fucks with the grays.
Yeah, they can't handle the atmosphere.
So I thought that was really cool. So this is gray aliens. This is what they're going to encounter, and we all know what that looks like, so I don't have to describe it. So they start going deeper into it.
This is like classic conspiracy. This is where the Illuminati come from.
I know,
they're from an alien race. It's got everything.
You know what I love?
It's everything. I'm so excited.
You know what I love, and I usually don't do like a Matt comment right now, but I love that like this one tablet just broke down all the fucking government conspiracies all at once. Like the only thing they left out was Bigfoot.
Super convenient.
Like they're like, by the way, all this stuff in the Bible and the Illuminati, all right here, one tablet. Right
it's
there.
like one run-on sentence that just covers it all. No, I think they found a bunch of shit, but like maybe I don't know. Just like. I know it's a little convenient, but this story has credence because if you read the interview and stuff, it doesn't sound like someone who's, I don't know, it'd be very hard to make up the way he's responding to the questions, but I don't know, it's a fucking interview with a guy we don't get to know his name. I mean, it's super sketchy to begin with, but I love
know
the
other people who've made up amazing stories too, but
this is true.
Continue.
Don't kill my awesome story, guys.
It sounds awesome. I'm on board. Let's do it.
Come on. Action.
All right, here we go.
I'm rock hard right now. Let's do this.
All right, so they get to the third level. This was when shit gets real. So they hear horrible sounds. Every hour, they hear horrible children screaming and getting women and men being horribly murdered and tortured. And they hear these sounds on and off. Some soldiers can't take it, have to leave to go to the top. They end up figuring out that it's on loop and it's the same kind of thing. And it's on a set pattern. So every 90 minutes they'd hear it. So it's like someone's trying to scare them out. And they're like, that's so weird. They keep seeing things in the distance. Like they go down a long hallway and they'll see a head pop out, but they can't make it out. And the head will pop back. And they'll be like, that's weird. So right away they knew something was down there, but they weren't really fighting them or doing anything weird. So they weren't that scared. They were still trying to collect artifacts. They were going deeper into base to explore what the hell this crazy thing is, which I thought was just creepy. It's just something out of a horror movie.
It's interesting. Sorry to cut you off real quick. How many levels did you say there were?
I've heard 7. In the book, I think they say 7 as well. This story kind of ends at 3. I think there's deeper levels. It's really interesting how they break it down. Eventually they come to. I'll get to it in a second, but I think there's 7 total. I don't know. It's a made up base potentially.
It's like Dante's Inferno, where there's the 7 levels of hell.
Oh, maybe it's a metaphor.
Here we go. So we're covering more
each one represents
material. Dante's Inferno now, 7 layers.
This story is everything. It's a secret to life.
Ties it all together.
This is when it gets real action horror, though. So they finish picking up everything on the third floor. They're pretty sure things are watching them. They decide to pack up and go, but two soldiers are like, whatever, let's go down and check some things out. Let's go explore on our own. You know, the thing you
Oh
don't
my god,
do in
this
a
is
horror
such a
movie.
movie. This is exactly. There's always that jackass who's like, let's just go further.
So these guys
Game over,
go deep
man.
in, and they start hearing noises, and they come around a corner. And there's a large room, and there's 50 Greys in there. And this is the first time they notice that, like, these aren't humans. Like, what the hell is that? Those are clearly aliens. And they're operating and doing really bad stuff. There's clearly humans and animals in there, and they're doing things that, like, you don't want to dream about. And
Like
they can't
what?
really make it out because it's all, like, they're from a distance, and they see it, and they start to freak out.
Oh shit! Imagine accidentally like busting into that room and like
that's
50
like a horror movie.
Greys suddenly look around at you at the same time. Oops! Excuse me, guys. Just
That was
looking
the
for
worst
the
case
bathroom.
scenario.
I'll just back
They
out
notice that
quietly.
there's screens in the walls, and on the screens in the walls, the screens are showing them upstairs, like their base upstairs. So clearly they've been monitoring them the whole time. But not that concerned, 'cause they didn't put up walls or anything. They're like, whatever, come on down, humans. We'll kind of scare you, but, you know, what's going on? There's
We're
dumbass
so
fucking
hungry
gray
for
aliens.
lunch.
Right. Right. So then the two guys start to leave, but one drops his pistol, makes a loud noise, straight out of a horror movie. All the Greys turn. This is the head
Jesus.
moment you're talking about. And they're like, and they immediately start clicking in this weird language, and the guys start running. They're like, what the fuck? But one immediately gets grabbed and starts screaming. And you hear a gunshot firing off. The other guy just sprints, which, you know, not a good friend, but whatever. He keeps running.
Yeah, fuck him.
And he runs away, runs really fast. He hears gunshots, and all of a sudden he starts like yelling, screaming, and his teammates who are up ahead start going like, what's going on? They start even firing in his direction because they don't know what the hell's happening. And he's like, he doesn't even care that he's getting shot at by his own people. He runs back. They're all like confused. They're like, what are you doing, man? What the hell are you yelling and shooting at things? What the fuck's happening? Like, this is crazy. And he's like, oh, they're down there. So and they slowly start to realize like he's running from something, and they start to hear clicking, and they start to see shadows in the distance. And the commander is like, remember, these are badass American like special forces before it was special forces. So the commander's like, everyone
America.
hide immediately. Everyone hide. So everyone starts hiding behind like blocks and buildings and like tables all made out of the special material. And they have like normal guns for the time, like automatic rifles or whatever. And they all start hiding, and they have lights on. And they notice whatever's coming around the corner is kind of illuminated. Like they're all holding something that's kind of making a little light on it. So the commander is like really smart. He's like, everyone shut your lights off. So they shut their lights off, and they're all sitting there in the dark. And like two snipers have like that night vision, so they can really see what's happening. And they're all waiting. The commander's like, no one fire, no one do a damn thing until I say so. These things come out, the aliens come out, they start to get closer and closer. They're totally disorganized. They're not coming out like they're ready for it, really. They kind of just walk out confidently, and they're kind of disorganized. There's a couple in the front. There's a couple wearing lab coats. They're holding these weapons, actually. Later they find out they're like bioluminescent, or like, I forget the terminology. I don't want to read the whole quote, but like they're a special kind of gun. They're energy weapons. And they kind of walk out, and then they get too close. One clearly like sees them and fires a shot. And immediately the commander's like, everyone light them up. So the Marines just light those aliens up like the aliens are not ready. They get lit up. They just like, they start ripping into the crowd of them. The aliens fire back and start hitting soldiers. It's just a fucking battle right away. But our team, who doesn't have, you know, advanced weaponry, is lighting them up, like just beating the alien's ass. One guy gets in front, and somehow there's like a super jacked alien. There's one alien that's like bigger than the rest. Like, I don't know why. There's one tall gray who's like the LeBron James of like gray aliens. And like, then like,
It has to be a fist fight, like in that scene in Indiana Jones. He's got to fight the big guy, the big Nazi.
so
Fist fight. Alien takes his shirt off.
So in the middle of this firefight, this dude one-on-one takes out a giant alien, and the giant alien like really is beating his ass, and almost like taking pleasure in it, like not like even trying to kill him right away, even though he kind of could have shot him with his energy weapon, kind of messing him up, which is kind of weird. They just kind of sadistically like to do that. But the soldier ends up getting his weapon, grabbing it, and firing at him, and they start firing at the aliens, and the aliens disperse. They run back, like they just run back. And by the way, right in the beginning of this fight, half of them ran right away. Like they were in lab coats, they were like a different breed, like the fighters stayed. So the aliens completely retreated, and we're like, what the fuck was that? And the soldiers, some got shot, some were killed, but overall they dominated them, and they got the fuck out of there. So that was the battle in 1940. America. So the aliens weren't ready for a fight, which is super interesting. So what they think happened was the last time these aliens fought anything was the Apache Indians or Native Americans. And so they probably didn't even think it was that big of a deal, didn't recognize the weapon, so kind of just confidently came out, fired a shot, like, hey, whatever, you get out of here, Apaches. And then they got lit up. They were not ready for U.S. Special Forces to kick their ass, which is so cool.
Yeah. So they were trying to deter them from coming down by using those noises. And then when that didn't work and a couple of jackasses went down there, they were like, I guess we got to sort this out.
And then they did, and then, full circle.
Okay.
But what's cool about this is they think that, like, the Native Americans 100 years ago would have actually won if there was more of them. Because even then they were unprepared. Like, but they learn. So I'm not going to get into what happened in 1979, and you guys, whoever's out there can read the book UFO Highway, but the aliens learned their lesson, and they weren't pushovers at that point, which is super crazy.
So wait, hold on. Are they still there? Are
Uncle
they still
Sam.
in that tunnel?
Well, yeah, they're still in that tunnel. So what happened is they brokered a peace treatment with them. And like within the next 2 years, they came to an agreement between the aliens and them. They started working together. There was even a fraction within the aliens that came up to the top levels and really helped the humans. And there was some below who didn't really want to, but kept it like quiet. The aliens have their own ships. They still abduct people and cows to run terrible experiments. And the U.S. government let them do that as long as they traded technology with them. And the group that broke away from them ended up working with the government on more like positive stuff too. So it was a very complicated story that happens over the next 35 years that led to a horrible thing in 1979 that ended up the reason why the colonel was called in to talk to these people. So it's a long, complicated story, but I just loved the action horror, like somehow involving Apache, natives, alien base with multiple levels, special forces versus aliens. Like it just like is everything I want in a movie and in a story. And I mean, I don't know if it's real or not, but it's, I'm going to go with real just because life's more interesting that way.
That's right.
It reminds me of was this related to, was it Eisenhower or did broker the deal with the supposed deal? Because I remember hearing about this Dulce base once the humans and the aliens started working together, and then there was like the various levels, and I think like one of those sort of bottom levels was referred to as the nightmare level.
It gets worse and worse as you go lower and lower.
And that's
because the aliens are science.
That's where they did the really fucked up experiments. Yeah.
So one of the levels in the underground base is called the nightmare level.
Yeah. It was when the humans and the aliens started working together, and it was referred to by people on the base as the nightmare level because they were doing all these fucked up experiments and stuff with hybrids and all sorts of stuff.
Oh.
And people who human personnel who had seen what happens down there just referred to it as the nightmare level.
Right. They say a lot of missing people. One of the things that's tied to Dulce is they say like all these missing people in the country they can't track. Like there's so many missing people in this country and they don't know where they go, and there's all these different rumors, but one of them is abductions by the gray aliens taking them to Dulce and other facilities and doing horrible, horrible things to people for their own weird genetic experiments. Yeah.
Like missing 411 stuff?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. But generally not associated with national parks, just like, random abductions. I don't know. Like it was, what's weird about the story is like, I agree with Greer that most of it is positive. But if there was a race of aliens that were created as servants and then left behind to their own devices, I could see how terrible things in real abductions could happen. Or it's combined with the U.S. military.
Well, it sounds like
they're doing it together.
They're not so much aliens as they are like what's the underground aliens? Ultra-terrestrials?
Yeah,
whatever.
At this point.
But they're, they've been here longer than we have by the sound of it.
Well, I mean, but that's kind of like the whole conspiracy with underground bases that we don't know of, right? There's all this there's just Dulce, but like that's the gateway to like how many miles of underground bases all over the Southwest. And
it's all connected, apparently.
And it's all connected. Same thing with Europe. South America, there's people who talk about underneath the Nazca lines, there's underground bases there as well. I don't have any proof of that, but it's just this idea that like something was here way before, and they either took shelter underneath the earth or they made that into their home based on where the where the planet was and what was happening on the surface and their species.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's been something that people have been talking about for a very long time. And the idea that there's giants, that you hear of all this stuff. I think I did a story, and I can't remember what country it was, like Ecuador or something, where there's a tribe who's very indigenous, and there's an entrance to a cave, and they religiously talk about how the giants told them that they would leave them alone if they didn't let anybody go into the cave. And of course they let some archaeologist was like, fuck that, I'm going to go anyway. And then a whole bunch of like stuff happened to that indigenous tribe. And it was like a curse kind of type of thing. Ooh. So it's like, but
that's interesting.
Where did that
pop
story
up
come